The things I do for my fans. Hello and welcome to a special 101 class. The votes are in. I'm here in the cemetery. The Hobgoblin has won, so let's do this very convoluted characters 101 right now. So stay tuned. Hobgoblin 101 is coming at you. Now, in order to start with the Hobgoblin, actually before I even start this whole review, I'll tell you guys right now, it's very windy out here. I don't know how this is going to sound. May have to dub over it. I really don't know. It's windy out here. Put it that way. But anyways, let's get with the Hobgoblin here. The Hobgoblin, as you probably already know, is a very similar looking villain to the Green Goblin. And what he is in reality is someone who stumbled across the Green Goblin, what a Green Goblin stashes. Because what the Green Goblin used to do, Norman Osborn, used to stash all these different gliders, pumpkin bombs, serum and all that stuff, all in different places in New York City. So in case he had to change right away or get into gear, he could get it, you know, more easily accessible. Kind of like Spider-Man always has his suit underneath his clothes, well, most of the time. Green Goblin couldn't really go around with a glider on his back. So what he did is he hid the stuff around the city. So this is where the Hobgoblin comes in. The Hobgoblin stumbles across one of Norman Osborn's old stashes and decides that he's going to take over the mantle. So what he does though, he doesn't take the equipment exactly as it is, he modifies it a bit. He modifies a bit the look of the glider on the front. He modifies the colors of the costume, the mask itself, because he wanted to take on his own persona. He wanted to be known as another Green Goblin, as at this point there are already 3 in the past, so he wanted to be his own man. So what happens is he becomes the Hobgoblin, and he goes around flying on his glider and causing havoc, just like the original Green Goblin did. This Goblin, though, is a lot more focused on money. Attaining money, stealing, attaining funds, as the Green Goblin was more bent on destroying Spider-Man. Because Norman knew Peter's identity and he didn't like him and all that stuff, so they clashed a lot. Hobgoblin saw Spider-Man more like as a number 2 priority. Number 1, getting the money. Number 2, fine, we'll deal with Spidey if he gets in the way type thing. The Hobgoblin kind of meshes into the underworld, to the criminal underworld. And what he does is, he tries to at least, he learns that the Kingpin is really Wilson Fisk. And he learns also that Kingpin's son doesn't like his dad. So what he tries to do, he tries to team up with the Kingpin's son, Richard Fisk. Gives him a new identity as the Rose, which is a new mobster. And he kind of tries to help him take down his dad. All the while he doesn't really want to help Richard take down Wilson. What he does want, he wants to take over the underworld himself eventually. So we get a lot of that. We get a lot of Hobgoblin fighting against Spider-Man and Hobgoblin fighting against the Kingpin. And all in all, the Hobgoblin's only out for one person, that's himself. Later on, Marvel decided, okay, well, we've gone for years without giving this guy an identity. So nobody knew who the Hobgoblin was. And this is where the story gets convoluted. Because even though we think we know who he is, we don't really know who he is until a lot later on. What'll happen is in Spider-Man vs. Wolverine, it's a one-shot issue. It takes place in Europe. Spider-Man goes to Europe with his fellow reporter of the Daily Bugle, Ned Leeds. So Ned and Peter always had a problem. And the problem was that they both wanted to go out with Betty Brant. And the issue was that every time that Peter would screw up because he had his Spider-Man priorities, Ned would come swooping in and trying to get Betty to go out with him and to be with him. In the end, Ned wins, and he ends up marrying Betty Brant. What happens during this European investigation, if you will, when they send Peter and Ned, is that Ned gets killed and assassinated in the hotel room. It's off panel, you don't see it happen, but Ned's killed. And so Spider-Man kind of deals with the grief of having Ned dead, knowing, you know, that he was there and he might have been able to save him and whatnot, even though they weren't exactly the best of friends. You know, Spider-Man still isn't one to condone any kind of evil acts. what we learn later on, right after this, Marvel writers change. And we get the Spectacular Spider-Man comes to Amazing. And he is asked to write a story revealing the Hobgoblin's identity. So him reading back on all the material that he's seen, the only person that makes sense for him is Ned Leeds. So bang, we've got a revelation that Ned Leeds is the Hobgoblin, and Ned Leeds is already dead. Which absolutely outraged fans because it made no sense that they're going to reveal the identity of a huge villain and the guy's already dead. It made no sense. We'll fast forward 13 years later. Stern comes back to Marvel, Roger Stern, and he says, hey, I got an idea, we're going to bring back the Hobgoblin because that's not the way that I wanted to do it. He didn't want Ned Leeds to be the Hobgoblin. He wanted somebody else. So he commissions a book, 3-parter, called Hobgoblin Lives, in which we learn that the Hobgoblin is really multi-millionaire fashion designer Mongol Roderick Kingsley. So all these years that people thought that Leeds was a Hobgoblin, it wasn't true. Kingsley was a Hobgoblin because he had actually framed Ned Leeds, brainwashing him and making him believe, and giving him a suit and all that, making him believe he was a Hobgoblin. So he brainwashes Ned, gets Ned caught, revealed as a Hobgoblin. Wilson gets him eliminated, if you will, in Europe. And then what does Kingsley do? He just goes away with his money and stops being a Hobgoblin for a while. But as word that the Green Goblin is coming back, Norman Osborn apparently wasn't dead all these years and has come back. This angers the Hobgoblin because the Hobgoblin knows that Osborn is the Green Goblin. And so it kind of brings him out of retirement. So the Hobgoblin has battles with the Green Goblin again, and he wants, just basically in order to try to get some more money and extort money out of Norman. And Norman hates the fact that the Hobgoblin took his ideas, took his suit and all that stuff. So you got a big conflict between those two now. At last seen, the Hobgoblin took off with some money, was on a nice desert island sipping champagne, and that was it. And he ponders to himself, will we see the Hobgoblin again? Who knows? So, the story of this is basically, Hobgoblin is like the Green Goblin. The origin was so convoluted that it took 13 years later of actually revealing the identity for us to learn that it wasn't even him. The Hobgoblin's cool, a great Halloween looking character with orange, flies around, throws pumpkins. Gotta like that. So yeah, anyways, take care guys. Later. I'll leave you now just with a quick list of all the people who have ever worn the Hobgoblin costume. Happy Halloween guys.